I never thought I would be writing something like this. My name is Jake, and I'm just your average guy living in a quaint suburb of Chicago with my wife, Emily. We were married for 5 years, and on the surface, everything looked perfect. We had our jobs, a cozy little home, and even a cat named Whiskers who kept us entertained. But lately, things started to feel off, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It all began about 6 months ago. Emily, who used to be so attentive and affectionate, started acting distant. I noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She was glued to her phone, texting more often than usual, and she seemed preoccupied whenever we were together. At first, I wrote it off as work stress. Emily was a marketing manager at a big firm, and the demands of her job could sometimes take a toll on her mood. But as the weeks passed, the distance between us grew, and I felt a gnawing sense of unease in my gut. What really set off alarm bells was the time she came home late from work, claiming she had to help a colleague with a last-minute project. I remember waiting for her that night, staring at the clock and feeling my chest tighten every time I heard the distant sound of a car. When she finally walked through the door, she had that deer-in-the-headlights look, and I could tell something wasn't right. The excuses kept piling up, and I started to become suspicious. I decided to dig a little deeper. I know, snooping isn't the best way to go about things, but I felt desperate. I started checking her social media accounts and noticed she had been posting pictures at a local restaurant that I had never heard of, with a group of friends I didn't recognize. One photo stood out in particular. There she was, laughing with her head thrown back, the kind of laughter that used to be reserved for our special date nights. It was a picture of her and some guy who looked like he belonged on a cooking show. A famous chef, or so I later learned. The next few weeks were a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. I began to piece things together: the late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in gourmet cooking. I could almost hear the ticking clock of betrayal, and I just knew something wasn't right. One afternoon, I returned home early from work, hoping to surprise her with a nice dinner and maybe rekindle some of that lost warmth. Instead, I stumbled onto the worst surprise of my life. As I walked into our kitchen, I heard voices. At first, I thought it was just Emily talking on the phone, but as I got closer, I realized she was in the living room and there was a man with her. A man with a chef's jacket and a devil-may-care smile. I froze, my heart racing, and listened as they exchanged laughter and flirtation that cut through the air like a knife. It was like watching a scene in a movie that you never wanted to see. I felt sick to my stomach. With a deep breath, I stepped into the room. "Well, this is a surprise," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Emily's eyes went wide, and I could see the blood drain from her face. The guy, who I later found out was named Marco, awkwardly cleared his throat and made a quick exit. Once he was gone, the confrontation began. Emily stood there, frozen in place, and when I asked her what was going on, she stammered through a series of lies. It was just business, she insisted, her voice shaky. He was helping me with a marketing campaign. But her eyes betrayed her. I confronted her with the evidence, the texts I found, the photos on her phone. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Emily tried to downplay everything, spinning webs of excuses. "You don't understand, it's not what it looks like," she pleaded, her voice tinged with desperation. But I did understand. I had seen enough to know I was being played for a fool. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined it could. In that moment, everything changed. My world shattered, and I felt a heavy weight of anger, sadness, and disbelief crash on me all at once. I had invested so much in this relationship, only to find my wife had chosen a man whose culinary skills overshadowed our love. I remember thinking about how I had let myself ignore the signs, hoping that everything would work out. Yet here I was, faced with the undeniable truth. So, what was I going to do now? The emotional journey that lay ahead felt daunting, and I was forced to confront the reality of my situation. It was time to decide how to move forward, but I was still reeling from the gut punch of betrayal. I needed to gather my thoughts and come up with a plan. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey towards self-discovery and eventual revenge. That night felt like a whirlwind, and I couldn't help but wonder how everything had gone so terribly wrong. Would I forgive her? Could I ever trust her again? All I knew was that I had my work cut out for me, and that's where my story truly begins. After that confrontation, the air in our house felt so thick it was suffocating. I spent the next few nights on the couch, replaying everything in my mind like a broken record. The laughter, the shared moments, the love that I had thought was strong, all of it was tainted now. Emily moved around the house like a ghost, her presence a constant reminder of the betrayal that had shattered our lives. I wanted to scream, to throw things, but instead I bottled it all up inside. I felt furious and humiliated. The anger was consuming. The more I thought about Marco, the way he had laughed with my wife, the way they had shared those intimate moments right under my nose, the more I wanted to do something about it. It was like a fire igniting within me, and I knew I had to channel that energy into a plan. I couldn't just sit back and let this infidelity define me or our marriage. A few days after the confrontation, I decided it was time to confront Emily again. I wanted to hear her side of the story without the distractions of the initial shock. I wanted her to explain her actions, to give me something, anything, that might allow me to make sense of this madness. I had no intention of forgiving her right away, but I needed clarity. We sat across from each other at the dining table, the remnants of our life together hanging in the air like uninvited guests. I could see the fatigue etched on her face. "Jake, I'm so sorry." She started, but I cut her off. "Sorry isn't going to fix this, Emily. I need to know why. Why him? Why not us?" I asked, my voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of pain. She looked down, her fingers fiddling nervously with a napkin. "I don't know," she finally admitted. "I guess I was just looking for something more." I felt trapped. Trapped. We had built a life together. I couldn't wrap my head around her reasoning. I felt like a fool, but there was no turning back. The more she talked, the more it became clear that she was trying to diminish her actions as if they were nothing more than a casual fling. I didn't know how to process the emotional whirlwind I was in, but I refused to let her manipulation work on me anymore. That's when it struck me. If Emily was finding fulfillment in an affair, maybe I needed to reclaim my own sense of self-worth. I had a decision to make, and it wouldn't involve wallowing in self-pity. Instead, I would embark on a journey to rediscover who I was. I had always loved cooking but had let it take a backseat to our life together. Now, I wanted to dive back into it with a vengeance. I began spending my evenings experimenting in the kitchen, pouring all my energy into learning new recipes and honing my skills. I started watching cooking shows and following food blogs, even reaching out to local chefs for tips and tricks. My passion reignited as I tried my hand at gourmet meals, coq au vin, risottos, handmade pastas. You name it, I attempted it. Cooking became my therapy. It filled the void Emily had left behind. I even enrolled in a local cooking class, where I met other food enthusiasts who appreciated my culinary efforts. It felt liberating to be in an environment where I could express myself openly. As I honed my abilities, I began to feel a sense of confidence returning. Then, one fateful day, I received a message from one of my classmates named Sarah. She was a talented photographer with a passion for food styling. We connected instantly, sharing tips on the perfect plating and the best wine pairings. Our conversation soon turned into something deeper, and I found myself laughing again, something I hadn't done in weeks. But while this newfound friendship blossomed, Emily was still lingering in the background, insisting she wanted to work things out. I couldn't help but feel conflicted. Should I give her another chance? Could our marriage be salvaged? I wrestled with the idea, torn between the desire to move on and the history we had built together. Then one evening, as I was plating a beautifully seared duck breast with a cherry reduction sauce, my phone buzzed. It was a photo from Emily, a selfie of her with a group of friends, all smiles at a fancy restaurant. I felt the fire in my belly ignite once again. One of the guys in the picture was Marco. I felt the heat of betrayal again, and suddenly all the progress I had made in my cooking journey felt tainted. That was the tipping point. I made my decision in that moment. I wouldn't be a victim of her choices any longer. I was going to embrace my newfound passion for cooking and turn it into something empowering. I would show Emily that I was not someone to be taken for granted. Days turned into weeks and I started planning. I would host a dinner party, a celebration of my culinary journey, but it would also serve an ulterior motive. I wanted Emily to see what she was missing, to realize that I was no longer the passive partner she could take advantage of. As I gathered my supplies and planned the menu, I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. This was no longer just about revenge. It was about taking control of my life and my happiness. I was ready to show Emily the true impact of her choices, and I was determined to make it unforgettable. The stage was set, and I was ready to execute my plan. I couldn't wait to see the look on her face when she realized what I had become. This was my turning point, and there was no going back. As the day of the dinner party approached, my excitement and anxiety grew in equal measure. I meticulously planned everything, inviting Sarah and a few other friends who had supported me during this transition. I wanted the evening to be a celebration of culinary creativity, but deep down, I knew it was also about sending Emily a message. This was about reclaiming my identity and showing her what she could lose. I spent hours in the kitchen preparing the menu. I settled on a lavish three-course meal that would showcase my newfound skills. For starters, I made a fresh caprese salad with heirloom tomatoes and homemade pesto. For the main course, I opted for my seared duck breast with cherry reduction, accompanied by a side of truffle-infused mashed potatoes. And for dessert, I decided to create a decadent chocolate souffle, light, airy, and utterly indulgent. On the day of the dinner, I transformed my home into an inviting space filled with candles, soft music, and the tantalizing aromas of my cooking. As I set the table with my best dishes and arranged the flowers Sarah had brought, I felt a sense of pride wash over me. I had taken something painful and turned it into a celebration of my resilience. When Sarah arrived, she brought a bottle of fine wine, and we toasted to new beginnings. She was supportive and encouraging, offering to help with the final touches in the kitchen. I felt a genuine connection with her, a shared passion for food that transcended the difficulties I had faced with Emily. As the guests arrived, laughter filled the air and the atmosphere became electric. But I was acutely aware of Emily's impending arrival. I had invited her, of course. I wanted her to see what I was doing with my life and how much I had grown. She arrived fashionably late, as always, and walked in with an air of confidence. But when she noticed the guests, especially Sarah, her demeanor shifted. I could see the surprise on her face, the realization that I wasn't the same man she had treated with such indifference. As we gathered around the table, I watched Emily closely. I had prepared every dish with care, hoping to impress not just my friends but also her. I wanted her to understand that I was no longer willing to settle for being taken for granted. As I served the first course, I caught her eye and smirked, feeling a sense of satisfaction knowing she was watching me thrive. The evening unfolded beautifully, filled with laughter and delicious food. Each course was met with applause, and I reveled in the compliments showered upon me. Emily remained quiet, her smile faltering with each passing moment. It was clear she was wrestling with a mix of regret and realization. I had set the stage for her to recognize the depth of my transformation. As the evening progressed, we moved to the living room for dessert. The chocolate soufflés were a hit, and I felt a rush of pride as I served them. I watched the joy on Sarah's face as she savored each bite. I knew this was more than just a meal. It was a declaration of my reclaiming my life. When the dinner party came to an end, I gathered everyone for a toast. Holding my glass high, I thanked my friends for their support and for being part of this newfound chapter in my life. But then I turned to Emily, and to my wife, who has challenged me to rise up and show what I am capable of. I said, my voice steady. This has been a journey of self-discovery, and I hope you realize what you've put at risk. Emily's expression shifted as she processed my words. I could see the tension in her jaw and the way her eyes flickered with emotion. It was no longer just about the dinner, it was about our future. As everyone raised their glasses, I caught her gaze once again. When the guests began to leave, I felt a sense of accomplishment. I had shown Emily that I was not going to be the passive partner anymore. I was reclaiming my worth, and I was not afraid to stand up for myself. But I still had one more conversation to have with her. As the last guest departed, I turned to Emily. "We need to talk," I said, my voice firm yet calm. "Jake, she started, but I cut her off. "No, let me speak. I've spent the last few weeks discovering my passions and rediscovering myself, and I need you to understand that I'm not the same person you took for granted. I won't allow you to manipulate me anymore." Her eyes widened and she opened her mouth to respond. I held up a hand, signaling her to listen. "I want honesty, Emily. No more lies about Marco or whatever else is going on. If we're going to make this work, we need to rebuild on a foundation of trust." Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded, and I could see the weight of her choices beginning to sink in. "I'm sorry, Jake. I never meant to hurt you," she said, her voice trembling. "I was lost and I didn't know how to find my way back." "Maybe you should have thought of that before," I replied, my heart aching at the sight of her distress, but I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. "I need time to think. I need to know if you truly want to fix this or if you're simply regretting your choices now that you see me thriving." She nodded, and for the first time there was a glimmer of sincerity in her eyes. "I do want to fix this. I want to make things right, I promise." I sighed, feeling a mix of hope and skepticism. "Then show me." As the night came to a close, I made a decision. I wouldn't close the door on Emily just yet, but I needed to take things slowly. I was ready to take charge of my life, and I hoped she was willing to do the same. The journey forward wouldn't be easy, but I was prepared to face it head-on, with or without her. I had learned so much about myself during this process, and I was determined to continue growing, regardless of the outcome. It was time for Emily to prove she could meet me halfway, or I would be forced to embrace a different future altogether. In the following weeks, the aftermath of the dinner party hung in the air like a thick fog. Emily and I were stuck in a strange limbo, each of us trying to navigate the treacherous waters of our relationship. I could see she was genuinely trying to make amends. She would make breakfast, leave little notes for me, and even attempt to engage in conversations about our future. But despite her efforts, the trust was still shattered, and I found myself unable to let go of the anger and hurt that had surfaced. I decided to keep my focus on my cooking. It had become my refuge, my escape from the chaos that swirled around us. I enrolled in more classes, pushing myself to learn complex techniques and experiment with flavors. One evening, I decided to take a leap and sign up for a competition at a local culinary school. It was a chance to showcase everything I had learned and to push my skills to new heights. I wanted to prove to myself that I didn't need to rely on anyone else for validation. I could find my own success. As I immersed myself in the competition preparations, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I spent countless hours perfecting my signature dish, a vibrant heirloom tomato tart with a crispy, buttery crust. It was a labor of love and reflected my journey of rediscovery. The day of the competition felt electric, and as I entered the kitchen I was filled with a mix of nerves and excitement. On the day of the event, I arrived early, fueled by adrenaline. As I set up my station, I noticed a few familiar faces among the contestants. One of them was Sarah, and she approached me with a warm smile. "Hey, Jake, ready to show them what you've got?" "Absolutely," I replied, feeling a sense of camaraderie with her. We chatted as we prepped, and I couldn't help but feel grateful for her presence. She had become a confidant and a friend who understood my journey and respected my passion for cooking. As the competition kicked off, I poured everything I had into my dish. I chopped, mixed, and assembled with precision, focused on the task at hand. The clock ticked down, and I felt every second slip away like sand through my fingers. Just as I was about to plate my tart, I glanced up and saw Emily walk in. She was there to support me, but I couldn't shake the mixed emotions that stirred within me. Seeing her in the audience, I felt a rush of conflicting feelings. Part of me wanted to impress her, to show her how far I had come, while the other part felt angered by her presence. Why was she here? Did she truly care, or was this another attempt to manipulate the situation? When I presented my dish to the judges, my heart raced. Their critiques were harsh, but I took them in stride, knowing that I had poured my heart into that tart. I was proud of the dish, and regardless of the outcome, I had achieved something for myself. After the competition, as everyone mingled and celebrated, Emily approached me, her eyes bright with pride. "Jake, you were amazing. I knew you could do it," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around me. I felt a rush of warmth at her genuine enthusiasm, but I also felt the familiar twinge of resentment. "Thanks, Emily, it means a lot," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "But this isn't just about impressing you. I'm doing this for me." She stepped back, a hint of hurt flashing across her face. "I understand, I really do. I want to support you." "Support me?" I shot back, the anger bubbling up again. "Is that what you call it? Because you didn't support me when I needed it most. You chose someone else over me." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know, and I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but I want to change, to show you I can be better." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but could I trust her again? The memories of her betrayal still loomed over us like dark clouds, threatening to rain on any potential renewal of our relationship. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think clearly. "I need time, Emily," I finally said. "I'm trying to find my way back to myself, and I can't do that if I feel like I'm still in the shadows of your choices." "I understand," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'll give you the space you need. Just know that I'm here and I want to support you however I can." As she walked away, I felt a pang of sorrow. I didn't want to hurt her, I wanted to heal, but I also needed to remain firm in my resolve. The weeks passed and I focused on my culinary pursuits. The competition had reignited my passion, and I continued to experiment with new dishes, pushing myself to learn and grow. I started dreaming bigger, about opening my own restaurant someday and sharing my love of food with others. It felt liberating to have a vision for my future. But then, one evening, as I was cooking dinner for myself, I received an unexpected phone call from the culinary school. I had won second place in the competition, and as a reward, I was invited to a prestigious culinary workshop with a renowned French chef. My heart raced with excitement, a validation of my hard work and dedication. When I told Emily about the news, I saw the spark in her eyes again. "That's incredible, Jake. You deserve it," she exclaimed, genuinely supportive. But as I watched her react, I couldn't shake the feeling of apprehension. "Thanks, Emily, but I need you to understand that this is for me, not for us," I said, my voice steady. "I get it," she replied, the enthusiasm slightly dimmed. "I just want to be part of your journey again." The tension between us felt palpable. I had come so far, and while I appreciated her support, I wasn't ready to re-enter the realm of shared dreams. I wanted to focus on my path, to keep growing into the person I had rediscovered. As the days turned into weeks, I continued to prepare for the workshop, immersing myself in cooking and taking advantage of every opportunity that came my way. I felt empowered, but I also found myself at a crossroads. Emily's persistent attempts to reconnect were becoming overwhelming, and I needed to make a choice. Then one night, as I was cleaning up after another successful dinner on my own, I received a text from Sarah. "Hey, just checking in on you. Wanted to see how the workshop prep is going." I felt a rush of warmth at her message and realized just how much I valued her friendship. It wasn't just about cooking, it was about the support and understanding we shared. I felt free to be myself around her, something I hadn't experienced with Emily in a long time. With that text, I realized I was at a pivotal moment. I had to confront my feelings regarding both Emily and Sarah and decide what path I truly wanted to take. I couldn't keep living in the limbo of the past. It was time to forge my own future, one that honored my hard work and commitment to my own happiness. But as I considered my options, I knew that whatever choice I made would have lasting consequences, not just for me, but for everyone involved. The stakes had never been higher, and I had to be ready to face the truth of my situation. It was time for a final reckoning. The days leading up to the culinary workshop felt like a whirlwind. I was filled with excitement, anticipation, and annoying anxiety. As I immersed myself in preparation, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a professional opportunity. It was a turning point in my life. I had spent so long navigating the wreckage of my marriage and rediscovering my passion for cooking that I felt a surge of clarity wash over me. I had made significant strides, but there was still a lingering uncertainty about Emily. Despite her attempts to reconnect and support me, I couldn't help but feel that something fundamental had changed between us. She was trying, no doubt about that, but I was no longer the man who would tolerate being taken for granted. The night before the workshop, I decided it was time to put everything on the table. I needed to confront Emily one last time to get clarity on where we stood and whether there was any hope for us to salvage our marriage. I invited her over, and as we sat at the kitchen table, I could sense the tension in the air. "Emily, I wanted to talk about everything." I began, my heart racing. "I'm heading to the workshop tomorrow, and I feel like it's a turning point for me. I'm finally embracing who I am, and I want to know if you can be part of that journey." Her eyes widened with hope, but I pressed on. "However, I also need to be honest. I can't ignore what happened between us. Your affair changed everything, and while I appreciate your efforts to make amends, I'm struggling to trust you again." Tears filled her eyes, and she nodded slowly. "I get it, Jake. I know I hurt you deeply. I'm so sorry for everything. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize I have to prove myself to you. I want to be supportive, but I also understand if you need more time." I took a deep breath, weighing my words carefully. "It's not just about time, Emily. I need to know if you're committed to rebuilding our relationship or if you're just afraid of losing me now that I've found my passion. I can't go back to pretending everything is okay." She looked down at the table, visibly shaken. "I don't want to lose you, Jake. I made a terrible mistake and I want to fix it. But I understand if it's too late. Maybe it is too late," I said gently, trying to soften the blow. "But I can't make any decisions right now. I've worked hard to get to this point and I need to focus on my own path for a while. I won't rush into anything or let myself be manipulated. Will you at least consider us? Can we talk when you return from the workshop?" she asked, her voice trembling. I paused, searching for the right words. "I can't promise anything, but I'm open to having that conversation. Just know that I'm taking this journey for me, not for us. You need to understand that I won't be the same person you once knew." With that, she nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand. I'll respect your need for space, but I hope you'll give me a chance to show you that I can be better." As she left that night, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I had taken a step toward asserting my independence, but the road ahead still felt uncertain. The next day, I headed to the culinary workshop, ready to embrace the opportunity that awaited me. The workshop was intense, filled with master classes led by some of the most talented chefs in the industry. I soaked up every bit of knowledge, pushing myself to learn as much as possible. It felt exhilarating to be in an environment that celebrated creativity and passion for food. I experimented with new techniques, explored international cuisines, and shared ideas with fellow aspiring chefs. One evening, during a hands-on pasta-making class, I found myself sharing a station with Sarah. We worked side by side, laughing as we tried to perfect our gnocchi while joking about our culinary failures. It felt refreshing to be around someone who appreciated food just as much as I did, someone who respected my passions without the baggage of past mistakes. As the workshop progressed, I found myself reflecting on my feelings for Emily. I was still heartbroken over what had happened, but I was also beginning to see the possibility of moving forward, either with her or without her. I understood that I had to be true to myself first, and that meant being open to new experiences and connections, whether that was with Emily or someone else entirely. When the workshop came to an end, I participated in a final dinner where all the participants showcased the dishes we had created throughout the week. I presented my heirloom tomato tart, and to my surprise, it was met with rave reviews. The chefs offered constructive feedback, praising my technique and flavor combinations. I felt an immense sense of accomplishment, and as I stood there, basking in the applause, I realized how far I had come since the chaos of my marriage. After the dinner, I received a message from Emily. It was a simple text, asking how the workshop went. I felt a rush of emotions as I typed a response, recounting the experience and how it had inspired me. I could sense she was eager for any sign of hope between us, but I was still on the fence. In the following weeks, I returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. I began applying for positions at local restaurants, eager to dive into the culinary world. But as I settled back into my routine, it became clear that I couldn't avoid confronting my feelings for Emily any longer. One evening, I invited her over to discuss how things were going. As we sat together, sipping wine and reminiscing about happier times, I could feel the familiar bond we had once shared, but I also felt a weight of unresolved tension lingering between us. "Jake," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "I've been thinking about everything we've talked about. I want you to know that I'm committed to making things right. I want to support you in your culinary journey, whatever that looks like." I studied her face, looking for sincerity. "Emily, I appreciate that, but I need to know you truly understand how much you hurt me. I can't just forget about the past. It's going to take time and I need to see real changes." "I promise I'll do whatever it takes," she replied, her eyes pleading. "I want to be part of your life again, Jake. I've learned so much about myself through this process, and I want to prove that I can be the partner you deserve." As I considered her words, I realized that while I was still healing, I had to be open to the possibility of rebuilding our relationship. But I needed to take things slow. "Okay," I said carefully. "Let's take it one day at a time. I'm willing to give us another shot, but we have to set boundaries and communicate openly. If we're going to move forward, it has to be built on trust." She nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Thank you, Jake. I won't let you down this time." With that, the conversation marked a turning point. I was willing to explore the possibility of rekindling our relationship, but I was also determined to prioritize my own growth. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, but I was ready to face it head-on, armed with the knowledge that I had the power to shape my own future, whether or not Emily would be part of it. As we moved forward, I understood that my journey was far from over. It was merely evolving, intertwining my passion for cooking with the complexities of rebuilding love and trust. The next chapter awaited, and I was prepared to embrace whatever lay ahead. As time went on, Emily and I settled into a new rhythm. We tried to communicate more openly, both about our feelings and the challenges we faced. I encouraged her to share her thoughts, and in turn, I opened up about my fears and aspirations. There were moments of tension, but we were committed to working through the issues that had previously driven us apart. I continued to pursue my culinary ambitions, applying for positions at restaurants and honing my skills in the kitchen. Emily was genuinely supportive, often encouraging me to push myself further. She attended my cooking competitions, celebrated my small victories, and even began experimenting with cooking herself. I could see her trying to regain my trust, and as I witnessed her efforts, I found myself softening. Yet, the shadows of betrayal still lingered. Every once in a while, I would catch myself questioning her honesty. Did she really mean what she said, or was she simply trying to win me back? It was a constant battle within me, and I knew it would take time for those wounds to heal fully. One evening, as I was preparing to host a small dinner party for friends, I found myself contemplating how far I had come. I had developed a strong circle of support, filled with people who genuinely appreciated my passion for cooking. Sarah had remained an important part of my life. Our friendship had deepened, and although we shared a special bond, I was careful to keep things platonic. I didn't want to complicate my feelings for Emily further. As I prepped dishes for the dinner party, I could hear Emily in the living room, chatting and laughing with our friends. It felt good to have our home filled with warmth and joy again, but I also sensed a weight lingering over the evening. I had invited Emily, but I wanted this gathering to be a celebration of my progress, not a reminder of our past struggles. The night unfolded beautifully. Laughter echoed through the house as we shared stories and enjoyed the food. I served my signature heirloom tomato tart, and everyone raved about it. I felt a surge of pride as I joined in the conversations, engaged with my friends, and witnessed the joy of sharing my culinary creations. But as the evening wore on, I noticed that Emily was becoming increasingly quiet. She seemed distant, lost in thought as she observed me engaging with the guests. I could tell that she was feeling the weight of our past, and it broke my heart to see her struggle. Later, while everyone was enjoying dessert, I decided it was time to check in with her. I pulled Emily aside, away from the chatter of our friends. "Hey, what's going on? You've been awfully quiet tonight," I asked, concern lacing my voice. She looked down, her fingers twisting nervously. "I don't know, Jake. I guess I just feel like I don't deserve to be here. I see you thriving, and I can't shake the feeling that I've ruined everything." "Emily, you're here because I want you here. I'm trying to move forward, and I want you to come along for the ride. But you need to understand that it's going to take time for me to fully trust you again," I said gently. She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I understand, and I want you to know that I'm committed to proving myself to you. I don't want to be the person I was before. I want to be better for you and for us." Her sincerity was palpable, and I felt a flicker of hope. "We can do this together, but we need to be patient. It won't happen overnight, and there will be bumps along the way. Just promise me that you'll be honest with me, no matter how hard it gets." "I promise," she replied, her voice steady. As we returned to the party, I felt a renewed sense of determination. I was willing to embrace this journey, but I also knew that I needed to prioritize my own happiness above all. The world of culinary arts was opening doors for me, and I was ready to explore every opportunity that came my way. Over the next few months, I received an offer to work as a sous chef at a well-respected restaurant in the city. It felt like a dream come true, and I was ecstatic. I shared the news with Emily, and her eyes lit up with pride. "You've worked so hard for this, Jake. I'm so proud of you." Her encouragement felt genuine, and for the first time in a long time, I felt optimistic about our future. As I embraced this new chapter in my career, Emily also took steps to focus on her personal growth. She started volunteering at local organizations, using her skills in marketing to help them reach broader audiences. Watching her flourish in her own way filled me with a sense of pride, and I realized that we were both on individual paths toward rediscovery. Of course, there were still challenges. There were nights when doubts crept in, and I found myself wrestling with my feelings about our past. But I began to understand that healing was not a linear process. It was filled with ups and downs, moments of clarity, and times of confusion. I made a conscious effort to communicate openly with Emily about my feelings and concerns. We began setting aside time each week to check in with each other, sharing our thoughts, celebrating our successes, and addressing any lingering issues. Slowly but surely, our relationship began to rebuild on a foundation of trust and understanding. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I turned to her and said, "I know we still have a long road ahead, but I'm proud of how far we've come. I want you to know that I'm committed to this journey with you, as long as we continue to be honest and supportive of each other." Emily smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Jake. I won't take your love for granted. Again, I want to be the partner you deserve." With that, I realized that while the scars of the past would always remain, they didn't have to define our future. We were both learning to navigate this journey together, and as we continued to grow, I felt a sense of hope blossoming within me. As I looked toward the horizon, I was ready to embrace whatever came next, whether that involved Emily or my culinary dreams, and I knew that I had the strength to shape my own destiny. For the first time in a long while, I felt free, empowered, and excited about the future.